Okay, hey everybody, this is Lawrence, and in this video I am going to show you my crazy monster instrument here that I made in Pure Data. I'm calling it the Dark Orchestra because of the weird sound that it makes. This is a really complex version of a really simple idea of a wavetable oscillator. So let me show you where it came from before I go into the craziness of all of that. Originally it started out as a very simple idea or concept, and okay, this is the basic idea, is that you have a wavetable that you can draw a waveform in. So what does that mean? Well, let me zoom in here. All right, zoom in, and this little table here will hold a waveform. A waveform is basically what a piece of sound looks like. So I can actually go in here and draw a shape. Okay, and that shape will be used to generate a tone. Now I have my MIDI keyboard here, and my MIDI keyboard will help me as far as telling Pure Data what note I want to play. The note will go in, and it will use that waveform to make a tone. Okay, we made a shape in here. Actually, let me make a new one here. Okay, so we made a shape, and this box over here controls how loud the note will play and how long it'll play. It basically is called, this is called an envelope. An envelope is usually made up of an attack, a attack, a delay, a sustain, and a release. Okay, so by moving these sliders around, I can change the shape or the amount. It basically controls the volume of the note over time. So, if I want the note to play longer, I give it a long release, a long sustain, a long decay, a short attack, and then when I hit my keyboard, I get a long note. Okay, if I want to, depending on what note I hit, I get the proper note based on the key that I hit on my keyboard, but it's still using the same waveform. Okay, so now that's a simple idea. If I go in here, I can clear out this table and I can make something a little bit different, something a little bit more like that, and I get a different sound. If I cleared it and change the shape again, that sounds different. Okay, and again, I can change how I want the volume of the note to go. So it's a shorter note. Now, this is the basic idea, and I expanded upon it because all you can do right now is just play one note at a time. It's monophonic. Okay, so if I want to play two notes, you can't hear two notes. So I took it from there, and then I came up with this bad boy here, where I duplicated the table. So instead of having just one table, we have four. All right, when you make a synth or a synthesizer, and if you want to be able to play more than one note, you need to have more than one voice. So for each voice, there is a wavetable here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I made 4 of them. I also added some code to make random waveforms, and then when I click these little buttons here, so 2 of them are controlled by that one and 2 of them are controlled by that one, so I can have random waveforms in here. Now that's in of itself kind of experimental and weird, because usually when you make a synth, the synth, you want all of the waveforms to be the same. You know, that way you can predict how the sound's going to be and so on and so forth. But I kind of want a little bit of randomness in there. So I made it so that each you know, table can either stand on its own or be, you know, random, or I can go in there and draw whatever I want. Okay, which will completely change the harmonics of the sound when I play all the notes at the same time. Okay, so we have 4 voices. Each one has different volume controls here. Zoom in a little bit. So you have volume controls underneath. The Car Plus is a algorithm that's kind of a famous algorithm for that it kind of simulates the plucking of a string. Okay, and in this case I'm using it to distort the sound. So it's going through, so this, you know, waveform is going through its own volume and then going through some distortion, and then it's going through an ADSR, which is our envelope. Okay, so it's going through, and I can change basically the length of the note. Okay, when I hit the key, if it's going to be a long note or a short note. Okay, and then there's a little crossfader down here that crossfades between the regular wave tone, okay, from the table above. Okay, so basically it crossfades between the volume of the waveform itself and the volume of the distortion. Okay, so I have a crossfader here. So I want to hear more of the pure wave itself, so I have it turned mostly up to there so that there's not, the distortion is not so overpowering. Okay, so that's the basics of it, but I just basically did the same thing 4 times, so there's 4 voices, so that now I can actually hold down 3 or 4 keys and get a harmony or a chord out of the whole thing. So now this is kind of what it sounds like with a little bit of distortion, just the basic wave forms, and you know, this one tone. This is what I kind of like about it. I can hit the same key on the keyboard, okay, and because it's polyphonic, because it has 4 voices, every time I hit the key, it's going to go to a different voice. And if each one is set up a little bit differently, you're going to get a different note every time you hit it. Kind of different feel, okay? But also the polyphony helps because if I want to use a chord, like a 3-fingered chord, okay, then I can hear the 3 notes, okay, the 3 tones from those different waveforms. Now, I don't know how to play piano, so I'm just kind of farting around. But the idea is there so that if I want to, you know, do some chords, come up with a melody or something like that, you know, I got it. Now, again, I can distort the sound and change it a lot just by going here and messing with these tables. You know, I can make this one kind of squarish, maybe make this one a little bit more simpler, you know, and it's going to give me, you know, slightly different feel when it's all mixed together. I like messing around with these note lengths as well, you know, so each voice can have a complete, like I can kind of make this really short, make this one really long. So this is what it sounds like kind of in its raw form. Now, the sound can be filtered and affected in all kinds of different ways. So, you know, one of the things I did was I added these little comb filters down here, all right? And they will kind of take some of the harshness out of the sound. And ultimately it ends up sounding like, you know, one of those old school Casio keyboards, kind of like this. It just sounds broken because I made all this little random stuff in here, so. But it takes some of that harshness out of it. Okay, so that's the comb filter there. If I turn it off, go back to the harsher sound. so that's how that works. Now the thing about pure data is, you know, it's an environment that you can go ahead and prototype, and you can, you know, build things, and you can actually build it as you're playing it. Okay, it's everything's happening in real time, so I can make changes and edits and keep going. Well, that sounds nice. Okay, so another cool thing about Pure Data is that you can build all this code, and you can build these little programs and modules, but then I can take this and shrink it, or not shrink it, but package it up into a smaller module and put into another project. So this is actually part of a larger patch. Okay, if I show you this one, okay, all of that code that you saw was actually in this little box here now, where it says SJ Synth. Okay, SJ Synth, okay, is literally, you know, all of that code that I showed you here. Okay, so I built all of this, and then I rolled it up into, you know, one little thing that I can bring into another project and control it from the outside. So I can take everything that was going on in there, and this bit of code right here is basically you know, reading my MIDI keyboard down here. So it's taking the notes from that and just sending it to the synth. This little code right here, Pure Data actually has some objects, and you can get some specialized libraries and whatnot to help you with creating chords. So this is like a major 7 chord, plus 7 chord, minor 7 chord. Okay, so I don't know how to play piano. I don't know all the chords. I don't know all the chord progressions. I know some of them, but you know, it's cool that there's objects that will help me specifically create certain kinds of chords and certain kinds of progressions. So you know, I don't have to worry about trying to, you know, play them manually. It's good for also testing to see what sounds good as well. So I have that in there. Now here's where all the other goodies are, where I can take the sound that I split the sound off into different you know, places, so that I can mess around with filtering and adding some other effects. Okay, one effect would be reverb. Okay, so let me turn this off. Get in here, can remove these. Okay, so now all of the output is going into these other filters over here. So I'm going to use the reverb, and I'm going to already adjust the room size and dampening and everything else. I'm going to turn the volume up, see what it sounds like. Okay, so it's the same sound from the synth, but I just added some reverb from down here. Okay, turn up the wet, add a little bit more dry. Okay, room size. Now when I play, I'll have some reverb. So that's a little bit of reverb. You know, I also have some different chorus effects, and all this can all be mixed all together as well. So, you know, okay, that's the chorus. I'll bring in a little bit of the reverb. Now there's also this thing over here called a voltage controlled filter. See if I can. reverb. I can also mess with the frequency shift over here. So I can do a lot, you know, first with the instrument itself and the voices, and then coming out to the outside here and creating all these effects and filters to really get to the minute things in the sound. That's with the comb filter turned on. Now eventually, you know, this is a kind of a prototype just to kind of see what I can make. But, you know, in order so I can play it, you know, a little bit better, be able to, you know, get to the sounds or get to the effects that I want, you know, I can sort of, you know, keep building upon this and eventually have it so that a lot of these, you know, toggles and switches that I'm using my mouse in order to hit, I can control using, you know, other controllers. Like, you know, I have a, you know, it's MIDI controller with pads and knobs on it, so I'm going to use that instead, you know, because when you're really trying to, and you're in the middle of something or in the middle of an idea or whatever, the last thing you want to do is stop and grab the mouse to click a button or something like that. So, you know, depending on where I take it. I like it. I like that. I like that it's probably the first instrument that I made that I like the sound of, and you know, I like it almost because it's a little unpredictable. It's a little off. It sounds a little bit like detuned, a bit. You know, it's something that I can probably use, you know, and build upon later on. I kind of like that you have to learn how to play it. You know, you have to learn how to control it. If you play it too fast, you know, it'll burn, you know, it'll distort, you know, so there's a lot of stuff going on anyway, so, you know, you have to kind of pay attention to it, you know, feel it. Definitely not something you play fast. I don't even know how that would sound. I would have to come up with some sort of code that would help me play notes faster or whatever, because I can't play that fast. But I think that's another thing too that's kind of cool about this, is that it'll always sound different. No matter what I do, I can always make it sound different. If I'm bored one day and I don't like the way it sounds, I can go in and draw completely different, waveforms. 4 completely different ones, or 4 very similar ones, and I'll get something different that sounds different, has different feel or different texture to it. Again, I can adjust the note lengths and so on and so forth. I kind of like that I have that control over individual voices. You usually don't have that in a synthesizer. It's all very, they all have to be similar, and they all are, when you tweak them, or if you adjust them, or if you modulate the sound, they're all done at the same time, basically to have an evenness and consistency throughout the entire harmonic range. But what if you don't want that? What if you don't need that? What if you want that detuned sound? What if you want something a little bit different? So, like that, I can control each individual voice and get something. So there you have it. That is my dark orchestra instrument patch thing. And hopefully it'll come in handy one day. So we'll see.